Welcome to episode 308 of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. I am Dave Deacon, and go ahead and hit the subscribe button because I think you'll like this episode. It's a keeper. A couple of weeks ago, we took the show on the road for a plot tour of the Rendel farm north of Miami, Oklahoma, in Ottawa County. After Dr. Josh Lofton and Dr. Brent Rendel finished with their parts of the program, we had a great lunch and then sat down with two members of the Rendel family to talk about their farm and their association with Oklahoma State University researchers. Now be sure and listen all the way to the end because Brent sets the record straight about the way some insects made their way into northeastern Oklahoma. It gets really funny really fast. Just a reminder, you will be able to find all the information we talk about on this episode and past episodes on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. As always, we start with a quick trip around the table, well, shop in this case, for an introduction to the dream team of dirt and everything that grows from it. Let's start with Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist.
They had some gnats buzzing. I was like, well, you don't have any gnats on you. It's like, well, it's either the historic lead in my blood or the compost that is just still oozing out. So we are awfully close to a historic site up here.
Dr. Brian Arnall. And next to him is Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
I just taught you how to overcome your ignorance in IDing. That had nothing to do with me bringing them.
Dr. Josh Lofton. Let's kick off our chat with Brent and Zack Rendel of Ottawa County, Oklahoma, which was recorded on May 2nd, 2024. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. Go ahead and do your introduction, sir.
Oh, well, thank you, Dave. Yeah. So we're up here in Ottawa County. You know, we've recorded a couple podcasts.
He did film at one point.
He did film. There's a video somewhere in the stratosphere. So, you know, up in Ottawa County at the field plot tour, looking at the stuff OSU's doing, and we're here with our host that have hosted research I've been on since I was a grad student in early 2000s. Not all of some of us weren't involved in it, but
that was before my time.
Before your time.
Brent and Zack Rendel. So they may have the last name and they are kin, but they're not that close all the time. Actually, if you look at them, you might not know they are kin, minus the last name.
Zach's beard is much better than mine.
Zach's beard is he's got a little more color to it than yours too. By now, Brent, you're kind of
not for long if my kids keep doing what they're doing.
Right.
But it's been a pleasure to be up here. I say that I grew up just a few miles down the road from Rendel's, and so, you know, getting up here doing research, I did my master's work or PhD as at least with programs that Dr. Ron had. Him and Jimmy Kinder down in Walters were the very first two that really jumped heavy on the green seeker stuff. Yeah. And so that's where a lot of that time spent. But they're fun to work with. We go back to folks that are willing to put up with our nonsense. And as Josh mentioned at the field day, willing to let us kill things. Intentionally kill things.
Be a little crazy sometimes.
Be a little crazy, do little crazy things.
You've pushed the boundaries a few times.
and every now and then we say, hey, do you want a piece of machinery you want to play with for a while and to compensate for what we put up with? So, you know, they've got a strip till rig up here they're playing with. But these two right here, Zach is award-winning sorghum grower. I don't know, Brent, are you award-winning sorghum grower?
Sorghum. I would do sorghum. Yeah.
But the rotation up here, canola. They've done canola days up here with Josh. Sunflower. We talked about flowers today, and so just a fun rotation, and two guys are really willing to try a lot of stuff.
Well, and I'll say some of my first video shoots were actually up here years ago, and I worked on the TV show. I came up and shot video in your sunflowers. Think we did some type of nitrogen study.
It was nitrogen, but that was just down the road. It was closer to them, but it was on Larry Davis's place.
Okay.
So,
I just remember coming up the turnpike and you
little tractor and sprayer.
Oh no. This was the
spider.
Oh, the spider. So it was with him.
And you were we were trying to keep up with you on the road.
It's impossible.
Which was impossible. Him pulling the spider, and we pulled off to go to the bathroom. 3 minutes, we were off of I-44, hop back on, and we did not catch him until we met at the toll gate.
I was doing the speed limit. You were not.
You're right, because I was not doing the speed limit to catch up with you. Yeah, that's the only way we caught up with you. But yeah, I mean, it's always like you say, there's those farmers in different parts of the state that people look to. Jimmy Kinder's a go-to for me down in southern Oklahoma, and then the Rendel family up here. Just kind of, it's cool that they're progressive and wanting to work with the university and try to help other folks.
Well, so I'll ask you both, because you both have participated in it, and it's moved from hosting research to now doing your own research. Yeah. So, like, kind of what has on-farm research meant to y'all, like, in developing your operation up here, as you guys have grown and tried to fit everything into your system?
Well, with me, it really all came down to, Ottawa County is a long, long way from Stillwater. Yeah. I don't know if you're aware of that. I know there are places farther away from Stillwater in Oklahoma than Ottawa County, but not that many. And so it was one of those things, too, where we're really in a unique environment. Mm-hmm. It doesn't rain as often as I would like, but it does rain over here, and it doesn't get as extreme in the heat. But it also doesn't get as cool at night. Mm-hmm. So there's just a whole host of things that are unique to Northeast Oklahoma. And there's this really big expanse between Tulsa and here where there's not, row crop agriculture. So there's this geographic gap where there's not, production agriculture outside of range and pasture management. So it came down to, if I wanted to find answers that fit for me, I could either try to do it myself or try to partner with you guys. And I found out really early on that if I just asked, hey, if I do this little piece of work, can you help me with this? I could get whatever I wanted. It was amazing. And I was just like, okay, I'm not on my own. If I'm willing to put a little skin in the game and let somebody kill my crops, then I can learn a few things.
Yeah, well, and that's been a big thing is since I got back. Of course, Brent was working with you for a while before I got back. And
some of us never left.
Well, understandable, but. It was kind of working with Brent the first time. It was, okay, I'm going to go up there and we're going to work a little bit and get comfortable. And it's like, nope, he's already like, okay, I can do everything. I just need your combine. Right. Really, if you just lent me your combine, I could do everything myself.
Do you have a plot combine that I can borrow?
And then I need help with the data. Other than that, I can do everything else myself. And that's just a pleasure to just say, okay, everything else is handled. I just need your help with the data.
The crazy thing was, these guys were doing it before it was easy.
Yeah.
I mean, his first in-applicator with the knob or the in-ramp rig that you built.
It's in that barn right over there.
Lord, we're talking about, he has a way to make things complicated. I'm just saying.
Amen.
They're simply complicated.
Dr. Ron's paper said I needed a 16 rate ramp strip, so I built a 16
He
rate.
never did things simply either. So, but now, and kind of slight transition, talk about how on-farm research has changed. So that would have been 02, 03-ish. In that realm when you first started working.
We didn't let Zach answer the first.
Oh, I'm sorry, Zach. Why is on-farm research? It was going to be the same.
I think it's getting into the question that you were getting ready to ask is how is it different from when he started till when I'm here now?
Exactly right. You're right. What's the difference in 99, 2000 on-farm and 2024 on-farm?
So I still think of myself as a younger producer. Even though I'm 33, I still feel 22 at heart. But
still pretty young there.
I know. I'm pretty young, but no, it's a lot easier because I can come up with all of these crazy different ideas and think of all this fun stuff to do and things to try. And it's as easy as hitting a button and mapping it in the machine as I'm going. And then whenever we harvest, it's right there. We can see it. So that's what's changed. There's a lot less orange flags in our fields because we don't have to stake them. We can see it on the iPad or wherever. But I think that's what's changed from when they've done it. But the concept and the reason you do it is still exactly the same. There's always questions. If you're not asking questions every day, I don't think you're progressing.
So doing it politely, why don't more farmers do on farm?
Time. I think it's time. We are in such a go mode now for everything. We're in a fast-paced world that they don't want to take the time. I mean, there's farmers out there that only plant one variety of corn because they don't have the time to switch varieties, and they don't want to take the time to pull the planter and do this. So they have to rely on the guys that are willing to do that and take the time to do that and look at plots and research. And it's always fun to, be talking about the things that we've done and the things that we've seen and on different stuff. And then the neighbors ask you, well, how do I do that? Well, you got to think outside the box. I don't want to do that. And that's okay. I mean, to each your own, but I guess we'll be the guinea pigs then.
Yeah. And I think along with time, a certain level of fear of doing something wrong that you'll just hesitate to do it because realistically, as you guys know, if you're going to find out, it's one thing to see, well, which one of these two varieties of seed will work better. Okay, there's not a lot of fear in there, and a lot of farmers like to plant variety trials, and they'll do their own. But if you say, hey, would you be interested in doing a nitrogen study? Oh, okay, I'll adjust my my wheat top dress nitrogen. I'll put in one strip where I'll put on 50 pounds an acre, and I'll put in another strip with 60 pounds per acre.
Yeah.
I'm like, would you put in a strip with 0? No. Well, why not? Well, because I know I need nitrogen. Yeah, but you don't know how much you need. And so it does take a while to, if you sit down and look at it, take a little bit of pain to maximize the value of the information you get. And I know you jokingly say, you go out and kill somebody's crops and you try to deliberately abuse them. But the reality is the answers that you learn from abusing a system pays so much dividends down the road.
A comment, then a question, and then Josh. So the comment is what we get into a lot of the stuff that we work with is, and you guys appreciate, is that if we just ask the little things, we don't make big movements. We got to make big mistakes to make big movements, and so that leads into we got that covered. So if you look over the years, both of you guys on the mistakes, how you say, let's just say you have X number of mistakes. How many of them was a mistake that led to more learning, and how many is a mistake that you absolutely regret because you learned nothing?
That was what my comment was getting ready to be. Is you learn a lot more when things go wrong than what you learn when things go right. And I would say the things that I've done, the list isn't near as long as what Brent's done, but 80% of everything that I've done wasn't a failure, but it was not what I was expecting the outcome to be. But at the same time, there was a few in there where the outcome was, whoa, this opens a whole door to another realm here. We got to go look at this and chase this side now.
And one of the things too, by looking at the margins and seeing where the big things are, I don't know about other farmers, but on our farm, things don't always go right. You don't always get to plant your double crop soybeans the second week of June. Sometimes you're planting them the third week of July. Now, I need to know what will happen. What are my odds? What are my risks? What are my rewards? And if I do a little bit of that, then when it informs decisions in future years when things don't go like I planned, and you learn that from the mistakes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing I was going to say is that it's hard sometimes to teach the graduate students when we have students come through is that you have to fail, and you have to not be scared to fail. sometimes you fail big.
Sometimes it's miserable.
That's the thing that I mean, I think I would be scared if if my livelihood depended on it, is that because, I mean, we fail all the time and we learn from it, but we still get paid at the end of the day, whether we failed or not. I mean, I can understand the grower perspective on saying that if I fail, this is a hit to my profit on a year-to-year basis. If you can't look at that long term, saying, okay, but I might at some point in time, I might not have a choice but to do things different. And what am I going to do things different?
Right. I mean, I'll just use a current case in point. Sitting right behind us is the strip till rig that out of the blue I get a text message from Brian with a picture and says, "This is coming to your farm."
I didn't say this is. I said, would you like?
Would you like?
Or maybe I asked him and he said yes, and I told you. Maybe that's how it works.
I think that's how it was, because I remember getting this text and like a little kid on Christmas. Oh, yes. Come on.
Okay. So we've kind of played around with strip till and thought about it, but now we actually have a strip till rig, and we're doing some work with it so we can find out some answers. But just this week, the U.S. government came out with their new protocols for the GREET roadmap, and it involves stacking different things. One of the things they categorize for corn and beans to qualify for the refiners is that the grain be certified to come off of no-till with cover crops and some other stuff. However, if you look into the details with it, that particular government agency's definition of no-till isn't what we as farmers consider no-till. It is strictly a limited, not broad acre tillage. And oh, by the way, some strip till methods do qualify. So we weren't looking at that. When this arrived 2 months ago, that was not a thought in our mind. This week, that is now a thought in my mind. Now I can take a program that, hey, whether I agree with it, whether I don't agree with it, it's a program that is going to happen. It is going to create a real opportunity to capture some money that we may not have been able to capture in the past. And now at least I will have some information so that I can decide, is that something that I can make a profit on? Because at the end of the day, any of the research, any of the on-farm stuff, it's about putting more dollars in my pocket in future years.
One of the best stories, I was a grad student. Brent was talking, and this was Green Seeker trying to work it out. And I still remember, and I've quoted it gazillion times over the years, as Brent would say, talking about the Green Seeker and the nitrogen management. Can't go in the coffee shop anymore and talk about high yields, but I am setting a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And so he's always been, I think that's one thing that allowed him to do some stuff, is that he didn't let the conversation of who's making more bushels, that he's always had a profitability built in, which it's much more common now. People, I mean, when all the prices went up and everything's getting crazier, profitability is a bigger comment than I think it was before. But coffee shop still operates today.
I go there every morning. But now the coffee shop talk is exactly what you said, high yields. I'm there. I can talk about high yields. But the reason I can talk about that is because of everything that he's done and my grandfather did before me that was taught to me. So now what they learned has been passed down to me, and I can take those things and excel higher, but also be conserving things in the long run.
Well, so let me ask you about like a field day like we had today. Us as extension agronomists, we look through the science, we look through sometimes we even do napkin math, and the economists yell at us for doing napkin math to try to do the economics of it. But
wait a minute, there's another way to do it than on a napkin?
Some people do it on the computer.
We're
I don't know how to do
that.
I don't know how to do that. I always have to bring out a piece of paper. But
does a spiral notebook in your pocket of your bib overalls count?
I think that's still napkin.
Kim Anderson would say no.
But But from our perspective, we try to gain as okay, this practice is feasible or is works from an agronomic standpoint. It might even work as an economic standpoint, but because we aren't part of the system, and I say everything coming out to these is so valuable for me because it can all work out economically, but then it can come to you and say, well, that's not practical. I can't do this on 2,000 acres. I can do it on 100 acres just fine, but practically it doesn't work on 2,000 acres. So on these kind of field days for you guys as growers that have a lot of research and interact with the university a lot, what do you guys still get out of these kind of field days of having everybody up and getting everybody to talk about what's going on? Maybe the answer is nothing, and I don't want to hear it.
I wouldn't say that. I would say it's maybe a little bit more different because for me, I kind of want to judge. Like, I mean, a lot of time I'll call you guys with crazy ideas, and we'll talk it over an hour, or text message back and forth. But I want to kind of know, I guess you could say, the neighbors, everybody else around here, their perspective of these things. And if it's things that we've talked about or I know you guys are doing, I kind of like to get their opinion on it, their feel. Not that I want to be the crazy one talked about and, hey, look at Rendel's fields over there. These look like crap. They only planted 60,000 plants of beans. Well, yeah, but we yielded pretty good off of that. And economics work out. But, I mean, I just kind of I like hearing that because I can remember 4 or 5 years ago, before Brent did his bean population study, it was talked. Josh, I believe you were the one that said it was. You need to be maybe planting 100,000 beans, and there's no way we can do that. I mean, prime example, Larry Davis. He was 100% prime example of we can't do that. 120, 140. That's what it's going to be, and that's what we're going to set it at. But things move on, things go through. It gets better. So it's just always nice to see the audience's perspective of how things are.
Yeah, I like the events really to see what it's a good way to judge the overall attitude of the local community. Is there interest in research in moving things forward, or is it more we're just gonna sit and just keep plugging along? So today I was very pleased with the turnout that we had. Absolutely. Because commodity prices aren't the highest they've been in a while, and fertilizer prices, while they've been higher, aren't as cheap as they have been, and fuel is certainly not as cheap as it's been. So from an economic standpoint, it kind of feels like this is going to be a tighter year. And when you get into those climates, a lot of farmers go into their shell. So you say, okay, come out to this field day. And I've been to field days before where I've gone and there have been, a lot of people from government agencies and a lot of people from universities and me. And it's like, okay, well, I'll get what I can out of this. But I mean, you get into a more robust field days. And I've been seeing, you guys have been doing the wheat tours here some this week and seeing good crowds show up. And it's like, that's good to see.
On your wall over there's a sign that says the family established here in 1893. Have all the ancestors ahead of you been as progressive into the field of research and really thinking about agronomic approaches, or is this just Brent said, "Hey, I'm gonna do this my way and see what we can do"?
They have been involved, and although I don't have a piece of paper that can prove it, as far as I know, my grandfather, Zach's great-grandfather, was the first farmer, at least in eastern Oklahoma, to plant a commercial field of soybeans.
Really? Wow.
So because the one of the county extension agents has said there's this new crop that's grown east, and we're pretty sure it can move into Oklahoma, and eastern Oklahoma is a natural fit for it. And now I know it's not uncommon to see soybeans grown all the way across the state.
Right.
But in the 1950s, 1960s, soybeans were one of those things that people drove by and went, what kind of weed is that?
Yeah.
So you say, what? Yeah, it goes back as far as you want to go. My great grandfather was a blacksmith. We still have his blacksmith shop, So I mean, he was kind of the hub of the local community,
right?
And, got the things in and out. So yeah, it continues on.
I ask that because sometimes you get that. You get that, well, we've always done it our way. And especially in extension, you get a lot of folks that say that. I remember that from my extension days. And I've always heard of you being, the Rendel family being, we're going to try this and we're going to hopefully, learn something from it. And I just didn't know how far back that actually went. So that's interesting. Some of the first soybeans were planted on this land.
Did you get that nice aroma of Northeast Oklahoma?
I was wondering.
That's research at its finest, right there.
So Hugh was talking. So Brian and them were talking earlier. They had some gnats buzzing. I was like, "Well, you don't have any gnats on you." He's like, "Well, it's either the historic lead in my blood or the the compost that is just still oozing out." So we are awfully close to a. Historic site up here. In fact, these folks farm some of that ground that used to be under chap piles and such. So that's another interesting thing. So my family up here, my mother's side, were actually in the mining industry. So they mined a lot of the pitcher card. In fact, the family had the last operating tour mine. My great uncle. Last operating tour mine up in Pitcher. So long family. My mom had been out to Roswell or to Grants, New Mexico when this paid out for a little bit. All the miners in up here went out west and then came back, and so.
So Vanpool, is that who you've been talking? Your great uncle that had the mine tour?
That's
the only mine tour I know of is the Vanpool mine
tour. The Vanpool mine. Yep.
Fun fact: this was their farm.
That is cool.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Full circle.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, so you guys might not want to, release your secret sauce, but
they already did. We smelled it.
Yeah, I got that. So if you guys can look ahead, money's not an option or an issue. Where's that next piece that the Rendel farms want to look at? Like you guys talked about this kind of coming to fruition, but like where do you guys see as the Rendel farms research progress going next?
One of the things I've got in I've made a few inquiries towards it, and we haven't progressed beyond the thinking about stage, and that relates to autonomous farming. And there are some companies out here that have really gotten things all the way to marketability. I'll just throw out one company name, not in particular, but it's just the ones that I follow, is Sabanto. And the neat concept, and I think that when early on, and with some of the bigger green and yellow companies were looking at autonomy, they were thinking really large pieces of equipment that pull really large pieces of equipment. And Sabanto kind of threw that onto its head and said, what if we're thinking small, nimble, and swarmed?
Oh, yeah.
And I got to thinking about it. And for the price of a current new tractor and new 24-row planter, I could buy an autonomous equivalent of that for probably about 2/3 the price. And one operator, now whenever a because I speak to farmers all the time, and they'll say, I was at a meeting just yesterday, and one of the farmers says, yeah, we just finished planting corn. Thank goodness it was the next day. Our monitor in that tractor, the screen went blank. And he says, you can't do anything with that tractor without that screen operating. And we were like, commiserating over the tech. It's a blessing and it's also a curse. And here I am talking about swarming an autonomous tractor. Obviously taking the tech even farther. But if that planter or that tractor goes down, I lose about, depending upon the configuration, 1/4 or 1/5 of my current planting operation. The other 4/5 are still running.
Yep.
If you have one row monitor go down on one of the brand new deer planters, your planter is done planting until that's fixed. So you've lost 100% of your planting capability. Yep. And so, yes, and now you got the techs and they come out and they work. So it got me to thinking, whenever I started looking at some of this autonomy, if we start thinking smaller, I think if we looked at it from an operating efficiency standpoint, I think that may be the way that we want to go, is more smaller,
so
not fewer bigger.
So Taylor's sitting in the background, but he, over the years, have gotten me to know a bunch of the best engineering minds in the U.S. So that would be Scott Shearer, John Fulton, now both Ohio State. Scott's always been on this little one, and so has John Fulton, is that the autonomy is swarms and small, because you got a couple things here. One, you don't need the weight of the cab, right? So you're autonomous, you get it under 100 horse, you're talking 4 to 6 row, you now have less compaction. You have a lot less compaction, a lot less surface weight. As much as else, the efficiency, as far as just mechanical efficiency of 4 rows versus 20 rows, is significant to the fore. Turning radius, all that stuff, is that per row unit, you're much more efficient on a smaller vehicle than you are on the bigger ones. And so there's a lot of efficiency factors that go in. And so Shear has been on this thing, and if we go autonomous, this is well over a decade ago, he's always been, it's going to be a swarm, it's going to be sub 100 horse, and we're going to be in that realm and it's going to move. And I completely agree. It's a smaller, more nimble system.
Yeah, one of the presentations I saw this winter at a conference was from one of these companies, and I can't remember their name, but their concept is they're building a Scout machine, and it will have. They're working on having some herbicide application capability now, but their main concept is this Scout machine lives in your field. Once you plant the field, every field gets one, and this thing at about 1 to 2 miles an hour drives the rows.
Wow!
24 hours a day.
Wow!
It is solar powered.
That's a Roomba.
The daytime.
It is a Roomba.
It's
not. That's not
a Roomba, but it's a Roomba. And so whenever we were getting the presentation earlier today with Kronos, and he was talking about, there's some, it's a great, and it's got to get soil mapped out, soil moisture mapped out to about 200. My first thought was, if you mounted that on a Field Scout,
they're already working on it.
About every 3 days, you would have a 100% map of your field.
Wow. It's in the works. Just so you know, the autonomous of the neutron probe has been. So Josh, you're asking, what do I see? I see the next iteration, and my next birthday is my 60th. Is it going to be something that I get to see? I think so. I'm going to farm for another 20 years probably, and I think I'll get to see it work where I have. When it's time to go plant, we pull the trailer out there and drop off 5 tractors and planters, and it goes and plants. And while I'm now with my phone monitoring everything, and Zach's tendering it seed and fertile and
taking all the fun out of it.
You got the hard job too. You're just labor.
Yeah,
you went from tractor man to labor.
I see where I'm at now. Goodness.
Well, and most importantly, it's not a butt and a seat. Nobody's. It can go 24 hours if need be.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And Brian, back to a point that you were talking about on the autonomy, having small 4-6-row pieces of equipment and small horsepower tractors. Case in point behind us, I've got this 340 John Deere 8R on a 4-row strip till machine. That was not very efficient, and it was not very fun, but it's all progress.
I tried to get you more units. But
I know.
That's about all I could get for free.
That's okay.
So.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. But, so I guess I'll jump in here, Josh, to your question. Where do I see going? I almost think, me personally, I need to take a step back and look at the basics. There's a lot out there in the world of agriculture and agronomy that are wanting to take you further down a rabbit hole that I don't see the yield at the end of that rabbit hole, but we'll test it and we'll see. But let's go to the world famous Brian slide of the ladder.
I was wondering where we're going with this.
Go back to the ladder slide. Go back to the basics, making sure we're figuring out optimum rates on the basics, and then go to the hard stuff later. But it's all a wave. I think in a lot of mine, it'll probably follow what's the world of agronomy looking like, what's everybody pushing, what's everybody wanting to see. That's I'll try anything.
You have.
I have.
The two of you have tried all the bugs in the jugs, and you've tried all the engineering, and
we've got a 5x10 whiteboard in our office that has everything on it, and down in the corner, about 1/3 of it is the list of on-farm projects that we've got. Luckily, this year so far, we're only May 2nd now. We have 3 items on that list, but last year I think there was probably 18 or 20 items on that list.
You don't have potassium strips on there yet.
Well, I said so far.
The only thing we put on there are the ones that we have to do. If you come out to the field and do them, then I don't. Those don't make the cut.
That's my own done.
That's your own whiteboard.
Yeah.
So kind of to what Zach was talking about earlier about the coffee shop. What kind of response do you get from your neighbors whenever word gets out that you're doing some of the things that you're doing? Not only for the university, but then also for you guys on your on-farm research.
It depends. It kind of depends on who it is and what generation they're from.
Right, yeah.
If they're from my generation, they're in the fast-paced mode. They're, we want to know what you're seeing. We want to know how it's doing. But you know what? That costs money, and right now we don't have that. Let's just keep doing it Grandpa's way.
Yeah.
I will be the first to admit this is not Grandpa's farm anymore.
Yeah.
It's his legacy, but it's not his farm.
That's true.
We're changing it. You know, we still honor, and there's a legacy there. But, that's and then the other thing that a lot of them, I would say a lot of them, it's easy to hire it done.
Yeah, that's true.
And case in point, field scouting.
Yeah.
The most important thing you can see in your fields is your shadow. That's a lot of people say that. That wasn't my tagline, but I'll gladly use it here. But there's a lot of them that I can pay somebody to go do that, and that person they're paying works for a cooperative or a farm store that sells you stuff.
Right.
That's probably not the person I want scouting my stuff, but that's okay. It works for everybody.
Yeah.
But and then there's some generation that they're stuck in their ways. They don't, and that's okay. Everybody has their own, and we all do things differently. And I've always told myself I won't be one to tell a farmer they're wrong. I'll just tell them I like my way better, and sometimes my way better shows too.
So in other words,
you're don't wrong. Tell a farmer he's wrong. Show him you're right.
Show him you're right.
Well, thank you so much for going on with us, Zach and Brent, for and for hosting us today. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, just one final thing, and this is I thought about opening with this, but I'll throw it at the end, and that way, Dave, it's easier for you to edit it out. In one of the early editions of the Red Dirt podcast, I'm listening.
Oh boy.
I'm in my tractor.
Oh boy.
And I hear the Rendel name mentioned. Now, I hadn't been on the Red Dirt podcast, so I was wondering, what are they about to say? And I believe we were accused of bringing chinch bugs into grain sorghum in Oklahoma.
I get blamed. It wasn't me. I think that was Warren.
I didn't do it.
All I know is that Rendel's, Milo, and chinch bugs were mentioned in the same sentence.
I know what that was. I know what that was because we were talking about chinch bugs, and Warren was saying that it was my fault that they were here, and I told about the time we worked with you in your canola and the soybean, where we had to find the
See how he defers to me? I got accused of it.
No. I don't know.
You don't know.
I didn't mean to accuse.
So I am grateful for this opportunity to clear my name. I did not bring chinch bugs into Oklahoma.
It's
grain
okay. Brought them to canola in Oklahoma.
You bring them to sorghum. You brought them to canola,
and they were false chinch bugs. So
And I get told I brought stink bugs to the state. So I mean, that's
I did not have stink bugs and soybean until you showed up and started growing soybean.
I just taught you how to overcome your ignorance in ID. That had nothing to do with
promise you,
them.
when I see 25 stink bugs on a leaf, I did not misiddentify that 10 years ago.
So that's where they came from.
That's
okay.
because you did not see your shadow in the field.
Josh, if you could kindly step around behind the barn here, we need to have a meeting.
You already did. You want to do that?
Yeah, I'm already there. Oh. Well, I'm never getting invited back, so I appreciate this, Dave.
I'm glad I could help. And thank you guys for helping, too.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad I can finally have the opportunity.
Thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And if you'd like to join the next discussion, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag. We would like to thank Brent and Zack Rendel of Ottawa County, Oklahoma, for hosting us for the day and joining us on the podcast. If you get a chance, head over to our redesigned website, reddirtagronomy.com, where you can find out more information about all of our guests, along with any of the resources that they talked about today or on previous podcasts. Again, that's reddirtagronomy.com. For Dr. Josh Lofton and Dr. Brent Rendel, I am Dave Deacon, and we want to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Agnow Media, LLC, 2024. And yes, all rights are reserved.